Flirting with a 7-foot alien war goddess was a mistake. Now she won't let me leave her ship. The battle in space was over, but the silence was worse than the fight. Ethan Cross sat alone in the cockpit of his small, broken ship. Sparks fell from the control panel. The oxygen warning light blinked red, steady, and cold. He had maybe 30 minutes left before the air ran out. He leaned back in his chair, chest tight. "Great," he muttered. "This is how I go? Not even a heroic death, just floating trash." Outside, the stars seemed too far away to help him. He had already sent out distress calls, but no one answered. The nearest human fleet was 2 days away. He was alone in enemy territory. Then his radar lit up. Something big, something massive, was moving toward him. The shape appeared from the darkness. A warship, black and silver, so huge it blocked the light of the stars. Its sides were covered with sharp, blade-like armor. Glowing alien symbols ran across its surface. Ethan froze. He knew that design. It belonged to the Veyran Empire, warriors known for never taking prisoners, except when they wanted trophies. A deep voice came through his ship's radio, speaking in a language he barely understood. The translation AI kicked in. "Human vessel, power down your systems. You are now under Veyran protection." Ethan laughed once under his breath. Protection? Yeah, right. More like under Veyran capture, but he had no choice. His ship was dead anyway. He switched off the last working engine. A flash of light, then a loud metallic sound, echoed through his ship. They were docking. He stood, heart pounding, as the airlock opened. She stepped inside, 7 feet tall, broad shoulders, long silver hair that glimmered under the emergency lights, black armor carved with golden edges, her eyes, bright amber, locked onto him like a hawk spotting prey. Commander Veyra. He had seen her. Face on war briefings, always with the same warning: do not engage. She was a living legend to her people and a nightmare to his. Ethan swallowed hard. She moved with a calm, dangerous grace, her boots heavy on the metal floor. 2 alien soldiers followed her, their weapons aimed at him. Her gaze swept over him from head to toe, and then, shockingly, she smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind that said she had already decided his fate. Ethan's mouth moved before his brain could stop it. "Well, you're a lot taller in person, and, dangerously attractive." The soldiers blinked at each other. Veyra tilted her head, her smile widening. She said something in her own language. The soldiers laughed quietly. The translator struggled, but finally gave him the meaning. "This human has spirit. I accept his challenge." Ethan frowned. "Challenge? What challenge? I didn't—" She stepped closer, so close he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. "In my culture," she said slowly, her accent sharp, "words like yours are not for strangers. They are for potential mates." Ethan froze. "Wait, no, that's not— I wasn't—" Her hand came up, touching his chin lightly, tilting his face toward hers. "Too late, little human." Her voice was soft now, but the steel beneath it was clear. "You will come with me." The soldiers moved forward, but she raised a hand to stop them. Instead, she took Ethan's wrist herself and began walking toward the airlock. Her grip was firm, unbreakable. Ethan struggled. "Hey, hold on. I didn't agree to anything." "You did," she said simply. "You just don't understand yet." They stepped onto her ship's docking bay. The place was enormous. Rows of alien fighters lined up, banners hanging from the ceiling, crew members stopping to stare. Every pair of eyes followed them as she led him through. Whispered words spread like fire. "Who is he? Is that her mate?" Ethan tried to protest, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of the ship's engines rumbling to life. She wasn't just rescuing him, she was taking him somewhere. As they entered a lift, he finally asked, "Where are you taking me?" She looked down at him, her amber eyes almost amused. "To my quarters. You need rest. Tomorrow we speak of your role." My role, he repeated. I'm not part of your crew, I'm just... The lift doors opened to a grand hallway, lined with alien symbols and guarded by armored soldiers. She led him past them like he was already hers. At the door to a large chamber, she paused and leaned down so her face was level with his. You may think you are free to leave. You are not. You challenged me, and I will not let you go until I am finished with you. Ethan's stomach tightened. Finished with me? That sounds... Before he could finish, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. A deep voice announced something in Veyran language. Veyra's eyes narrowed. We are under attack. She grabbed a weapon from the wall and tossed it to him. Stay close, human. If you die now, I will be very disappointed. The floor shook as the first blast hit the ship. Ethan's heart raced. He had been rescued or captured by the most dangerous woman in the galaxy. And now, in the middle of his confusion, they were going into battle. The doors to the command deck opened and Veyra pulled him forward. Stand by my side, she ordered, her voice like thunder. You are mine now, and the crew must see it. Ethan's only thought was, what have I gotten myself into? The lift doors close, and behind them with a heavy metallic thud, cutting off the sound of the crew whispering in the hall. Ethan's heart was still pounding from the sudden battle alarm, but Veyra stood calm, almost relaxed, as the lift carried them deeper into the heart of the ship. Her hand still gripped his wrist. It wasn't a rough hold, but it was unshakable, like iron wrapped in velvet. He looked up at her. You know, most rescues don't start with handcuffs, or whatever this is. She glanced down at his arm, then back at his face. You are not my prisoner, she said. You are my claim. Your claim? Ethan echoed. That sounds worse. Her lips curved slightly. In your human language, I suppose it means, I have chosen you. That's not comforting, he muttered. The lift opened into a vast chamber that took his breath away. The floor was polished black metal, reflecting the glow of shifting blue lights that pulsed along the walls. Strange banners hung from the ceiling, symbols of battles won, enemies defeated. Crew members lined the sides, their heads bowing slightly as Veyra passed, and they all stared at him. It wasn't a casual glance. Their eyes followed him like he was some rare animal, valuable but out of place. He caught whispers again, too low for his translator to catch. Veyra led him through until they reached a set of tall double doors carved from silver-white metal. Guards in heavy armor stood on either side, saluting as she approached. The doors opened without a sound, revealing a space so different from the rest of the warship, it made Ethan stop in the doorway. Her quarters were warm. The walls were smooth and curved, lined with shelves holding strange artifacts, jewelry, weapons, what looked like animal skulls. The floor was covered in soft, dark fabric. In the center was a low bed, large enough to fit 3 of her. A faint scent of something floral filled the air. Ethan stepped inside cautiously. I've seen prison cells nicer than this. You must really want me to feel comfortable? Veyra removed her armor piece by piece, setting it on a stand near the wall. Underneath, she wore a close-fitting dark tunic, her movements precise and unhurried. You are not here to be comfortable, she said. You are here because you challenged me. He sighed. We're back to that again. It wasn't a challenge, it was a joke. You know, humor? Humans do that when they're about to pass out from fear. Her eyes locked on his, and for a moment there was no amusement in them at all. In my culture, words spoken in the moment of fear are the truest words of all. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He didn't have a comeback for that. She crossed the room and picked up a thin metal band from one of the shelves. It gleamed faintly in the light. Without asking, she took his hand and slid it onto his wrist. The band tightened instantly, fitting perfectly. "What is this?" he asked, trying to pull it off. "A mark," she said simply. "It tells my crew you are under my protection. No one will harm you unless I allow it." That last part doesn't make me feel better. Veyra tilted her head, studying him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You are strange. Most humans would be silent by now. Terrified. You keep speaking." "I talk when I'm nervous," he admitted. "And right now, I'm extremely nervous." She smiled faintly as if pleased. "Good. Fear keeps you alive." Before he could reply, the ship shook violently. A deep rumble rolled through the floor. Ethan grabbed the nearest wall to keep his balance. Veyra was already moving. "Stay here," she ordered. "Yeah, that's not going to happen," he shot back. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Do you disobey me already?" He shrugged. "I don't exactly trust strangers who kidnap me and claim me as whatever this is." Another blast shook the ship. The lights flickered. Somewhere far off, alien voices shouted orders. Veyra stepped closer until she was towering over him. "Then come," she said at last. "But you will stand at my side, always." He didn't like the sound of always, but before he could argue, she had already grabbed a weapon from the wall and shoved it into his hands. It was heavier than it looked, and the alien design made it awkward to hold. They left the quarters and moved quickly down the hall. Crew members stepped aside, giving Veyra space, but every one of them glanced at Ethan. When they reached the command deck, the room exploded with motion. Crew at consoles, holographic displays showing enemy ships closing in. A massive view screen at the front showed the stars shifting as the Veyran flagship turned to face its attackers. Veyra strode to the center, Ethan right behind her. "Status," she demanded. "3 enemy cruisers," an officer reported. "They are faster than expected, shields at 70%. Veyra's eyes burned like fire. "Bring us to ramming distance." Ethan's head snapped toward her. "Ramming distance? That's insane." She ignored him, raising her voice so the entire deck could hear. "And bring the human forward." Every head turned. Ethan felt dozens of alien eyes lock on him. "This is the one who dared to challenge me," Veyra said. "Let them see who stands beside their commander." Ethan's mouth went dry. He had no idea what she was planning, but judging by the way the crew's expression shifted from surprise to something like respect, it was about to get dang. "Eris." The deck shook violently as the first enemy shots slammed into their shields. Veyra's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Hold your ground," she commanded. Then to Ethan in a quieter tone, "Watch closely, little human. You are mine now, and my battles are your battles." Another explosion rocked the ship. Ethan tightened his grip on the weapon, his pulse racing. And for the first time, a dangerous thought crept into his mind. Part of him wanted to see what she could do. The enemy ships loomed closer on the screen, their weapons charging. Veyra's lips curved into that same dangerous smile. "Now," she whispered, "you will see why they call me the war goddess." The enemy cruisers closed in fast, 3 massive shapes cutting through the black ocean of space. Their hulls glowed with shifting crimson light, each movement like the breathing of some mechanical beast. On the Veyran flagship's command deck, everything was alive with motion. Officers shouting updates, holographic maps spinning, the hum of power surging through the floor. Ethan stood awkwardly beside Veyra, clutching the alien weapon she'd given him. He had no idea how to use it. The ship rocked hard as a beam of energy sliced past their shields. Sparks showered from one of the consoles. The crew didn't flinch, they'd seen worse. But Ethan's heart hammered like a drum. Veyra didn't look nervous. She stood at the center like the captain of a storm, her amber eyes locked on the enemy ships. She lifted one clawed gauntlet and pointed toward the forward view. "Target their engines," she commanded. "Make them crawl." "Aye, Commander," one of her officers replied in Veyran. Ethan took a step closer to her, his voice low so only she could hear. "You're going straight at them. Shouldn't we be, oh, I don't know, running?" Her lips curved into a slow smile. "I do not run." The ship's thrusters roared as they accelerated, closing the distance between them and the nearest enemy cruiser. Ethan watched the scale of it grow on his screen until it filled his vision entirely. "They're charging weapons," an officer called. "Shields to full," Veyra ordered. "Brace for impact." A violent blast hit them head-on. The deck shuddered so hard Ethan almost lost his footing. Veyra reached out without looking, steadying him with one large hand on his shoulder. "You are safe," she said simply. He stared at her for a moment, this towering warrior who barely knew him, yet acted like losing him was not an option. The flagship's forward cannons fired. The sound was a deep, resonating thump that seemed to vibrate in his bones. The energy bolt struck the enemy cruiser's flank, exploding in a brilliant flare of blue and white. One hit, two, three, and the enemy ship's outer armor began to crack. "They're diverting power to shields," an officer warned. "Then break them," Veyra said coldly. Ethan felt the tension on the deck. Every crew member moved like part of a single living organism, each trusting Veyra without question. It was the kind of loyalty he'd never seen before, and it unsettled him. The ship jolted again, and a panel near the far wall exploded in a shower of sparks. 2 crew members went down. Instantly, Veyra barked an order, and medics rushed forward. Then, without warning, the enemy's second cruiser swung into view, coming from their blind side. "They're trying to flank us," an officer shouted. Veyra's voice was sharp. "Helm, rotate 90 degrees, broadside position. Weapons, target the flanker. Fire at will." The maneuver threw Ethan against the railing. Veyra caught him again, this time gripping his arm. "Stay with me." He nodded, his throat dry. The broadside cannons opened fire, unleashing a torrent of burning plasma. The second cruiser's shields flared bright, then shattered. The impact tore into its side, sending chunks of molten metal spiraling into the void. "Enemy engines fav." "The third ship. It's charging a superweapon." The screen lit up with the glow of the weapon powering up. Ethan had no idea what it was, but every instinct told him that if it fired, they'd be dead. "Evasive maneuvers won't be enough," an officer said. Veyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we strike first." She turned to Ethan. "You wanted to understand what it means to stand beside me? This is it. Watch." She raised her voice to the crew. "All power to forward cannons. Overload if necessary." The weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, overloading risks—" "Do it," she snapped. The lights on the deck flickered as power drained from non-essential systems. The air hummed with raw energy. The forward cannons glowed white-hot, and Ethan could feel the heat even from across the room. "Fire!" The blast tore through space like a spear of pure light. It hit the third cruiser dead center, piercing its weapon core before it could fire. For a heartbeat there was silence. Then the ship erupted in a massive explosion, fragments scattering like burning meteors. Cheers erupted across the deck. Veyra didn't cheer. She simply lowered her arm and exhaled slowly, her gaze still locked on the wreckage. The battle was over. The Veyran flagship floated in the debris field, victorious. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. "Okay, I see why they call you the war goddess now." She finally looked at him, a faint smirk on her lips. "And now you understand why leaving my side is not an option." Before he could reply, a voice cut in from the comm system. It spoke in Veyran, fast and urgent. Ethan couldn't understand, but he saw Veyra's expression change, her smirk fading into a cold, unreadable mask. "What is it?" he asked. She turned toward him slowly. "We are returning to my homeworld," she said. "You will meet my family." Ethan blinked. "Why do I feel like that's more dangerous than the battle? We just fought." Her eyes glittered in the low light. "Because it is." Cliffhanger. The flagship's engines roared to life, turning away from the battlefield. On the distant horizon, a massive planet came into view, covered in silver oceans and jagged mountain peaks. Somewhere down there was Veyra's family. And a new kind of war Ethan wasn't ready for. The Veyran flagship sliced through the void like a blade, heading straight for the massive silver-blue planet that now dominated the view screen. Its oceans shimmered under the distant sun, but even from orbit, Ethan could see the jagged scars across the surface, trenches carved by ancient wars. He stood at the edge of the command deck, watching the planet grow larger. Somewhere down there, Veyra's family was waiting, and if they were anything like her, yeah, he needed a plan. The battle was over, but the ship felt different now. The crew still moved with discipline, but their glances toward him were heavier. Whispered words passed between them when they thought he wasn't listening. The metal band on his wrist felt heavier by the minute, a mark of ownership he never asked for. When the command deck's shift change came, Veyra turned to him. "Rest," she said simply. "We will arrive within 6 hours." He forced a smile. "Sure, rest. That's exactly what I'll do." She studied him for a moment, as if sensing the lie, but then nodded and left with 2 guards at her side. Ethan didn't head to the quarters she'd given him. Instead, he followed a group of engineers down one of the side corridors. He'd spent enough time aboard now to know the general layout, and more importantly, where the hangar bay was. The plan was simple: find a small craft, get inside, get away before anyone noticed. Okay, not simple, but better than wait to be introduced to a family of 7-foot alien warriors. The hangar was massive, an open cavern of metal and light filled with sleek fighter ships and bulky transports. Alien crew moved about, checking systems, loading supplies. No one paid him much attention. The band on his wrist was as good as an access pass. Ethan spotted a small shuttle at the far end, its hatch open, a faint hum from the engines. Perfect. He slipped inside, heart pounding. The controls were alien, but he recognized enough: throttle, navigation, power systems. He'd figure the rest out as he went. He was just strapping in when a deep voice spoke from behind him. "Going somewhere, little human?" He froze. Slowly he turned. Veyra stood in the hatchway. No armor, no weapon, just her tall, imposing figure blocking the only exit. Her eyes were unreadable, but there was no anger in her voice. I was just testing the seat," Ethan said. "Very comfortable. 10 out of 10. She stepped inside, the hatch sealing shut behind her. "You think you can fly this?" He swallowed. "I've flown worse." Her gaze swept over the controls, then back to him. "Do you know what happens if you leave this ship without my Mark's permission?" "I'm guessing a polite goodbye message?" The corner of her mouth curved. "Your heart stops." Ethan blinked. "You're joking." "Try it," she said softly. The weight of her words settled in. The metal band wasn't just a symbol. It was a leash. He slumped back in the seat. "So that's it. I'm just stuck here." Veyra came closer until she stood over him, her shadow stretching across the console. "You think I brought you here to harm you. You are wrong, but you must understand. My world is not safe for outsiders. If you walk freely, you will be hunted. By your family." Her expression didn't change, especially by my family. Before Ethan could reply, the ship's comms blared with a sudden alarm. "Commander, we have incoming signatures. Multiple vessels closing fast." Veyra's head snapped toward the sound. "Not now," she muttered. She tapped the wall panel, opening a channel. "What vessels?" "Not Veyran," came the tense reply. "Unknown configuration. They are chasing us." Her eyes narrowed. "Bring us to battle readiness. I'm on my way." She looked at Ethan one last time, her tone sharp. "Stay here." "Yeah, sure," he said. "Not going anywhere. Literally." But as she turned to leave, he caught something in her voice, a flicker of tension she hadn't shown even in the last battle. Whoever these ships were, they weren't ordinary enemies. Ethan waited just long enough for her footsteps to fade before he opened the shuttle's systems again. If the band on his wrist really could kill him for leaving, maybe there was another way, something in the ship's computers he could use. He began tapping through the controls, scanning for anything that looked like a security override. Most of it was alien code, but one blinking symbol caught his eye. When he touched it, a distorted voice filled the shuttle. "Human, if you can hear this, you are in danger. She is not your ally. Follow these coordinates if you want to survive." Ethan's pulse spiked. The voice was male, urgent, and definitely not Veyran. He stared at the glowing coordinates on the screen. If he stayed, he was trapped. If he went, the band might kill him. But if the voice was telling the truth, maybe this was his only real chance. The shuttle's hatch began to open again, heavy footsteps approaching. Ethan had seconds to decide: stay and face Veyra's mysterious family, or gamble everything on the stranger's coordinates. The heavy footsteps outside the shuttle grew louder. Ethan's hand hovered over the coordinates glowing on the display. His throat was dry. He had 2 seconds to decide: stay or run. The hatch hissed. The shadow of a tall figure stretched across the floor. Ethan hit the command, "Engage!" The shuttle roared to life, engines screaming as the blast doors slammed shut behind him. The force threw him back into the seat as the craft shot forward, leaving the hangar bay in a blinding rush of light. Within seconds, alarms filled the cockpit. "Warning, unauthorized launch detected." Another alarm joined it. "Mark breach attempt detected." Ethan looked down at his wrist. The band was glowing faintly, sending a deep, pulsing heat into his skin. His chest tightened, his heartbeat erratic. Come on," he muttered, forcing himself to focus on the coordinates. He punched them into the nav system, hoping the shuttle's autopilot would make sense of them. The screen displayed a flashing route, straight into the dark stretch of space beyond the planet. Behind him, the flagship's voice echoed over comms. "Human, stop now. Veyra." Even through static, her tone was sharp enough to cut steel. "You don't understand," Ethan said, his voice shaking. You will not survive out there," she interrupted. "Whoever spoke to you, they are using you. Turn back." Ethan hesitated, his hand trembling over the throttle. She sounded not angry, but urgent, almost desperate. Then another voice cut in over the comms, male, rough, and familiar from the shuttle's hidden message. "Don't listen to her, human. She's bringing you to her homeworld for a reason, and you won't come back from it." The channel erupted into overlapping shouts, Veyra's commands to her crew, the stranger's warnings, the shuttle's own system screaming at him. He made his choice. He killed the comms and pushed the throttle to max. The shuttle darted into the black, stars streaking past. Ethan's chest ached from the heat of the wristband, but the pain didn't peak. It faded, as if the device's connection was breaking. For a brief, wild moment, he felt free. But freedom didn't last. The radar blinked. 3 red dots closing in from behind. Ethan swore under his breath. The stranger's voice came again, not through comms this time, but directly from the shuttle's system. "They'll catch you if you stay on course. Adjust heading 3 degrees starboard, down 15. "Why should I trust you?" Ethan asked aloud. A pause, then, "Because I'm the only one who can take that thing off your wrist." Ethan didn't need more convincing. He yanked the controls, the shuttle dipping sharply. Behind him, blue plasma fire lit up the darkness as the Veyran pursuit ships missed their mark. The chase became a blur. Ethan weaving between debris fields, skimming the edges of asteroid clusters. The stranger guided him through each maneuver like he'd done this 100 times. But the Veyrans didn't give up. One ship swung wide, cutting him off. "They'll try to disable you," the stranger said. "When they fire, kill your power for 2 seconds. That's insane. Do it or die." The enemy ship fired. A crackling blue net of energy surged toward him. Ethan slammed the controls, cutting all power. The shuttle went dead silent, drifting like a piece of scrap. The energy net passed harmlessly in front of him. He reactivated the engines, blasting forward before the pursuers could adjust. Finally, the radar cleared. The Veyran ships were gone. Ethan slumped back in his seat, adrenaline making his hands shake. Okay, where are we going? Somewhere she won't follow, the stranger replied. A free port on the edge of the Ashen Belt. You'll be safe there. Something in his voice made Ethan doubt the safe part. As the stars shifted around him, a shape emerged from the dark, a massive, jagged station built into the carcass of an ancient asteroid. Its lights flickered faintly, and strange, alien ships drifted in its orbit. "This is it," the stranger said. Ethan swallowed hard. "And who exactly are you?" The voice was calm, almost smug. "The one who used to own the war goddess, before she stole something from me." The shuttle's hatch opened into dim, smoky air. Standing there was a tall figure in worn armor, his face marked with the same glowing tattoos as Veyra, but his eyes were colder. "Welcome to the Ashen Belt, human," he said. "Let's talk about how we kill her." The station smelled of burned metal and stale air. Dim light flickered from strips along the ceiling, throwing jagged shadows across the hangar bay. Ethan stepped out of the shuttle slowly, eyes darting to the armed guards who had surrounded it. They wore mismatched armor, clearly scavenged from different battles, and each carried weapons that looked like they'd been used. A lot. The tall man who had greeted him strode forward. His armor was scratched and scorched, and the glowing tattoos across his face pulsed faintly, the same eerie blue as the marks on Veyra's skin. "You've got questions," he said, his voice rough like gravel. "You'll get your answers. But first, hand over the control band." Ethan instinctively clutched his wrist. "If I take it off, won't it kill you?" "Yeah, which is why you're going to let me do it." Two of his guards moved in, holding strange devices that hummed with energy. One clamped the device over Ethan's wrist. There was a flash of light, a searing pain, and then silence. The band fell to the ground, lifeless. Ethan stared at his bare skin. "You could have fried my arm." The man gave a faint, humorless smile. "I'm called Kale, and you've just taken your first step away from her leash." They led him deeper into the station, through twisting corridors carved into asteroid rock. Every wall seemed to carry battle scars, blaster marks, claw scratches, even deep gouges that looked like someone had swung a sword the size of a car. The place was alive with all kinds of aliens, scaled, furred, metallic, watching him with wary eyes. This wasn't a normal spaceport. This was a fortress for those who didn't belong anywhere else. Finally, Kyle stopped in a private chamber lit only by a central holographic display. The projection showed the Veyran flagship slowly moving toward its destination. "She's coming for you," Kale said. "She won't stop. And when she finds you here, she'll burn this station to the ground." Ethan folded his arms. "So, what exactly is your plan? You said something about killing her." Kyle stepped closer to the hologram. "Veyra is not just a warrior. She is the commander of the Veyran Royal Guard, chosen to lead them in war, feared across half the galaxy, but she didn't always serve them." He touched the hologram, shifting it to display a different image, a younger Veyra standing beside Kale, both wearing the same war armor. "She was my second in command," Kyle said, "and the closest thing I had to family." Ethan frowned. "What happened?" Kyle's jaw tightened. "She betrayed me. The Veyran High Council offered her something I couldn't give, power without limits. She took my fleet, my soldiers, everything. And she left me to die." Ethan tried to process that. "So this is just revenge?" Kael's eyes burned. It's justice. But to get close enough to kill her, I need bait. And lucky me, she's already obsessed with you. The words hit like a punch. Obsessed? She barely knows me. Kael shook his head. You don't get it. Veyrans see life differently. If she's claimed you, she'll fight anyone who tries to take you. That's what we use to draw her in. Ethan stared at the hologram. And what happens when she gets here? Kael's smile was thin. She dies, and you walk free. Something about his tone made Ethan's skin crawl. He was offering freedom. But there was something in his eyes, cold, calculating, that said Kael didn't care if Ethan survived the trap. Before Ethan could reply, alarms blared through the station. A voice crackled over comms. Multiple SAS, hips inbound, Veyran signature. Kael cursed. She found us faster than I thought. He turned to Ethan. You stay here. This is my fight. But before Kael could leave, another voice filled the chamber. It came from the station's comms, loud enough for every soul aboard to hear. Kael, hand over the human, and maybe I let your station live, Veyra. Ethan's heart pounded. She didn't sound angry. She sounded like she already knew she'd win. Kael grinned, but there was no humor in it. Looks like the war goddess has come for her pet. Ethan took a step back. I'm not your bait. Kael's hand shot out, grabbing him by the arm. You are now. Through the hologram feed, Ethan saw the Veyran flagship emerging from the darkness, its massive cannons glowing. Veyra stood on the command deck, eyes locked on him as if she could see straight through the projection, and she smiled. The hangar shook before the first cannon blast even landed. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the flickering lights turned blood red as the station's alarm screamed through every corridor. Kael dragged Ethan toward a fortified observation deck, barking orders into his comm. Shields at full, ready plasma batteries, focus fire on her forward cannons. The holographic display lit up with tactical readouts. Veyra's flagship was already closing in, its black hull absorbing the light of nearby stars, its massive wings stretching like the shadow of a predator. Smaller escort ships fanned out around it, forming a blockade. Ethan's stomach churned. You can't win against that! Kael's grip tightened. I don't have to win, I just have to kill her. The first salvo slammed into the station's shields, sending a violent tremor through the deck. Energy flared across the shield barrier like lightning in a storm. Kael turned to his second-in-command. Deploy the lure. Ethan's blood went cold. The what? Before he could react, the guard shoved a metal harness over his chest, locking him into place with magnetic clamps. He realized too late that it was connected to a signal beacon. You're broadcasting my location, Ethan shouted, struggling against the straps. Kael didn't even look at him. Exactly. Out in space, the flagship's formation shifted. The smaller escort ships peeled away, creating a direct path to the station's main hangar. She's coming herself, Kael said, almost to himself. Perfect. Minutes later, the airlock doors at the far end of the hangar opened with a slow mechanical groan. Steam poured in, and through it. Veyra stepped forward. She was taller than Ethan remembered, her armor gleaming black with streaks of molten silver. A massive war spear rested in her hand, its tip glowing faintly with energy. Her eyes locked on him instantly, as if Kael and the dozen armed guards didn't even exist. Ethan, she said, her voice low but carrying across the space. Come with me, now. Kael stepped between them. Over my dead body. Her gaze shifted to him, and her faint smile vanished. That can be arranged. The fight exploded in an instant. Kael lunged forward, blade in hand, moving faster than Ethan thought possible. Veyra met the strike with her spear, the clash releasing a shockwave that rattled the hangar. Sparks rained down as they traded blows, Kael's movements sharp and desperate, Veyra's precise and unrelenting. Around them, guards opened fire. Veyra's spear spun in a blur, deflecting plasma bolts, while Kael cut down anyone foolish enough to get too close. Ethan struggled against the harness, heart pounding. This wasn't a battle. This was a duel years in the making. Kael landed a brutal strike across Veyra's armor, cutting deep. She staggered just for a moment, and her eyes flicked toward Ethan. That moment was all Kael needed. He raised his blade high, aiming for her throat. But instead of finishing the strike, he spun and hurled the blade straight toward Ethan. Ethan's breath caught as time seemed to slow. The blade spun end over end, aiming not to kill but to destroy the harness. Metal shattered and the beacon went dark. Kael shouted, "Run!" Veyra roared, slamming her spear into Kael's chest, driving him back. He spat blood but laughed, the sound ragged. "I told you, I'd take something from you." Before Veyra could finish him, Ethan was already sprinting toward the nearest shuttle. He didn't make it far. A massive hand closed around his arm and spun him around. Veyra stood there, breathing hard, armor dented and scorched. Her eyes were fierce, but not furious. "You were leaving?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer. He glanced back. Kael was on the ground, bleeding, but alive. The hangar was collapsing around them as explosions tore through the station's structure. Veyra leaned closer, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "They think I want you because you're mine. They're wrong. I want you because you're the only one who can stop what's coming." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the floor buckled beneath them. The blast doors behind her slammed shut, cutting off Kael from view. She pulled him into the shuttle with her, sealing the hatch as the station vanished in a blinding explosion behind them. As the shuttle shot into the dark, Veyra keyed in coordinates. The nav display lit up with a destination Ethan had never seen before, a system far outside known space. He turned to her. "What's coming?" Veyra's eyes stayed on the stars. "Something older than our war, and if we don't reach it first, we all die."